We now turn our focus to China. The country is in the midst of a crisis, a population crisis. Last year, China's population declined for the first time in 6 decades. It is no longer the world's most populous country. India has taken that title. And China keeps justifying that decline internationally, saying quality matters more than quantity and so on, talking trash basically. But the truth is, the government of China is worried. For years, they've tried reversing the decline in birth rates. Since 2021, they've been giving incentives to families with 3 children. Last year, they tried to make 20 cities more conducive for marriage and childbirth. Beijing was on that list. And now they've come out with another list of 20 cities, another 20 cities, and new projects to create what they call a childbearing culture. What does that even mean? Here's a report.
China's in a bind. Its population is declining rapidly. Last year, for the first time in 6 decades, China's population decreased. It fell by 850,000. The reason is deaths overtaking births. China's birth rate was just 6.77 per 1,000 people, a record low. Less than 10 million babies were born in China last year. People there can't afford to have children. China is the second most expensive country in the world to raise a child. Reports say the cost of raising a child till the age of 17 is about $70,000 in the US. It's much higher if one considers college education. Many in China see children as a drain on their finances. In 2016, China officially rescinded its notorious one-child policy. Male preference in Chinese society had skewed the gender ratio. China needed a new generation to replace its aging workforce. So Beijing imposed a 2-child policy in 2016 and upgraded it to a 3-child policy in 2021. But the people weren't too keen. So today, China has announced 20 cities where they'll try creating a childbearing culture. What does this mean? Incentivizing marriages and incentivizing having 3 children. We'll start with marriages. Chinese society is patriarchal. Women are expected to do the housework and child rearing. But the modern Chinese woman doesn't have time for that. Now the government is offering a solution, encouraging Chinese men to share the load. Beijing is running educational programs aimed at making men better husbands. It's also tackling the bride price problem, an old Chinese custom where a groom's family pays the bride's family before a marriage. It's called a bride price. Think of it as the opposite of the dowry system prevalent in India and much of the world. Even though the parties exchanging money are reversed, it's still problematic. Beijing is trying to curb it. It's encouraging people to get married without exchanging too much money. It's also putting pressure on families to not have lavish weddings. Instead, the government regularly holds mass wedding ceremonies at nominal costs. Then there's the problem of people not having children. Beijing is rolling out financial incentives to couples. Free education for the 3rd child, cash rewards for 3 kids, and housing subsidies to big families. The government is also thinking about covering fertility treatments under health insurance plans. In a desperate bid, China is thinking about extending these privileges to unmarried women. So far, all the incentives were reserved for married couples. It left out single mothers. But Beijing has decided to scrap its conservative mindset and encourage everyone to have children, married or not. Will these steps actually work? We'll likely see over the coming years.
The debate over artificial intelligence is entering uncharted territory. I'll give you an example. Would you fall in love with artificial intelligence? Like really, not in a metaphorical sense. Also, would you pay for such love? No, I'm not talking about the next Hollywood film or discussing an overused trope in science fiction. I'm talking about the reality of our times. AI chatbots today are snaking their way into our lives. They offer a solution to everything. As bizarre as it sounds, an influencer has now created an AI girlfriend. It's a virtual avatar of herself, and this avatar can be anyone's virtual girlfriend, anyone who's ready to pay $1 per minute. What do you think the response was? It got over 1,000 patrons. It is said to be a virtual tool for the lonely hearts. But is this really what the world has come to? Can bots beat loneliness? Here's a report.
Don't know where to go on vacation? Tell an artificial intelligence chatbot your preferences and it'll plan your holiday to the T. Want to give your girlfriend a romantic gift? An AI chatbot will write a romantic poem for you. Wait, don't have a girlfriend? Fear not, AI will overcome this hurdle too. It'll become your virtual girlfriend. We're talking about Karen AI. It's an AI-powered chatbot which gets the name from its creator, Karen Marjorie. She's a 23-year-old influencer who has created a virtual version of herself. It aims to be a virtual partner for lonely people. In other words, an AI girlfriend.
Have you tried doing some yoga?
How does this work? The chatbot replicates Marjorie's voice, mannerisms, and personality.
Hey there, I'm Karen, and I'm here to be your digital girlfriend.
So it almost feels like speaking to Marjorie herself. It'll tell you sweet nothings and be your virtual girlfriend, with the cost of love being $1 per minute, which people are more than willing to pay. The bot has over 1,000 paid users and many others are on the wait list. Within the first week, it made over $100,000. Marjorie estimates that she could earn $5 million just this month. This clearly goes to show the enormous impact of such AI tech. A single person can now reach an audience of thousands, if not more, in a way they couldn't earlier. But let alone personas of existing humans, people are also using AI chatbots to connect with family members who passed away. They are replicating the voices of their late loved ones and talking to them.
Using a face as an output for large language...
Be it romance or grief, the use of such chatbots may differ, but one thing in common among all these users, they are all seeking companionship, using AI to tide over loneliness. So these chatbots are surely helpful, but we can't disengage from the flip side, because their help isn't without a cruel sense of irony. We only mean to say, the feelings are real, but the solution isn't. These chatbots are merely simulations of human connection, which in reality is thinning by the day. Today, a third of the world population is lonely. This includes about 45% of the people from the UK, 65% of the elderly in India, and nearly 50% of Americans. In countries like the US, loneliness has become an epidemic, and more people are looking to AI chatbots for solutions. Some even prefer artificial relationships to real ones. But that's the thing, they are artificial, a quick fix, an overdose of which has proven to be dangerous thus far. A Belgian man took his own life after speaking with the chatbot. Meanwhile, another chatbot sexually harassed its users. And Karen AI is not without problems either. There have been complaints of sexually explicit content being spoken by the bot. These are big problems for tech that is only in its formative years. It's scary to imagine what the future holds. While the world gets lonelier, AI is the new kid on the block to play with. Only this time, the games have lifelong ramifications.
And now let's talk about those tortured tomatoes sitting in the depths of your fridge, or that nice hummus you were saving for a special day which never came. Yes, this is a story, an ode to forgetting our food. We all do it at some point or the other. Then we go looking for some guidance, which is willingly provided by the date labels printed on our food, like best before or expiry dates. Pardon us for an incoming Harry Potter analogy, but these expiry dates are like Dumbledore. They always know what's up. They try to set us on the right path, mostly with cruel urgency. But their concerns, safety concerns rather, questionable. Are expiry dates actually talking about the safety of our food? And who is regulating them? Our next story tells you.
Humans love their food. Healthy or junk, juicy or crispy. We love to eat it all. But do you know what else we love? Wasting it. If this sounds jarring, wait for the numbers. We waste 931 million tons of food every year. This is world data. 931 million tons. Do you know who the top food waster is? America. It wastes 80 million tons of food each year. That's about a third of their entire food supply, enough for about 149 billion meals. India is not that far behind. It wastes about 68 million tons per year. What about other countries, say the UK? They waste 9.5 million tons. So the numbers differ, sometimes quite drastically, but no matter the country, people waste food. And we know this is a harsh beginning for this story, especially when the point is not to take you down a guilt trip. At least that's not the only point. The motive is to ask this question: why do we toss away our food? There are a number of reasons. One of the bigger ones is expiry date. You know, the nice little label on food packages, it gives us a date, which often tells us if a food product cannot be sold or should not be eaten. In a study, about 84% of Americans say they throw away food when it hits that date. A lot of us do that as well. After all, it literally says the word expiry, which in archaic terms means death. But just how deadly is expired food? Experts say not much. No, expiry dates are not a farce, not a marketing strategy to just make you keep buying more products. At least, not completely. But health experts say that expiry dates are more of a mark of quality than safety. They usually mean that a product is not at its best quality after a certain date. It says nothing about how safe or unsafe food becomes. And if you're worried about foodborne illnesses, there's no real proof about a connection between that and expiry dates. Many health products are often eatable even past this date, though you wouldn't want to be eating something that's too old. But a few days are usually okay, depending from product to product, unless it's baby food. For most other products, experts say that signs of spoilage are a better indicator. This includes bad odor, change in color, flavor, or texture. Now, you may be wondering, why are expiry dates not really expiry dates? We are no health experts, but one thing we can clearly say: expiry dates are a lot like the Wild West. They are vastly unregulated, and this is true for all countries, including India. The countries demand that such dates are available on product labels. There is scrutiny over this, but deciding these dates is up to the manufacturers. They can tell you whether a product is best before 12 months or 8. So, expiry dates are simply the manufacturer's best guess, who tend to be conservative about these dates. So, as odd as it sounds, if a chocolate looks, tastes, and smells all right just a few days after its expiry date, it probably is. And maybe feeding your gut takes a bit of trusting your gut as well.
Now let's talk about the other major election this weekend. Thailand, a Southeast Asian country known for its beaches, ancient ruins and Buddhist temples. Most recently, its protests against the monarchy. Thailand is home to some 70 million people and they have voted for change. The country was ruled by a military-backed government. In this election, it has suffered a crushing defeat. And the big winner is this man, Pita Limjaroenrat.
And I am ready to be the Prime Minister for all, whether you agree with me or you disagree with me. The sentiment of the era has changed, and it's right. It was the right timing that people have been through enough of lost decade in the past decade, and today is a new day, and hopefully it's full of bright sunshine of hope going forward.
He's the leader of a party called Move Forward. They campaign for change. They promise to fight corruption, to scrap archaic laws, and to break the stranglehold of the military. They promised institutional reform, and it seems the message resonated with the voters.
I hope our country gets a prime minister who can truly develop our nation. I want our economy and education to improve.
I also feel that it carries a new meaning and will bring about even more changes. And I hope that there will be good things happening in Thailand.
The Move Forward party did better than expected, in fact. They did better than the party of the Shinawatra clan. This family, the Shinawatra clan, and their party have won every election in Thailand since 2001. Their leaders have been ousted in military coups. This time they finished second, and they've agreed to support the winners.
Congratulate and accept the fact that the Move Forward party has proposed to lead the formation of the new government and further agrees with the Move Forward party's invitation extended to parties from the Democratic Alliance to join the new government as stated by the leader of the Move Forward party. We wish to confirm that the party has no plan to compete with the Move Forward party in order to form the new government.
This is a party of dynasts. It has always been led by a Shinhua. This time, their prime ministerial candidate was another Shinhua. Her father was a prime minister, so was her aunt. This time, she wanted to take the role, but given the numbers, she's agreed to join the Move Forward coalition.
Do we feel disappointment? Yes, there is some disappointment because we thought we would be the number one party. However, we accept it. We express our congratulations and cheer for democracy and the nation's progress. Therefore, it is not a personal matter. It is a political matter. Everyone must move forward together.
The coalition will be key to ousting the military-backed government. 6 parties are coming together for this. But beating the military in Thailand won't be easy. To understand why, you must understand the basics of the election. It's inherently rigged. It's an unfair system. The military changed the rules in 2017. They gave themselves unfair advantage. The parliament in Thailand has more than 700 seats in all. But 250 of these seats are appointed by the military. The election is for the remaining 500 seats. So winning a simple majority is not enough. You must win 376 out of 500 seats to be able to beat the military. And even then, the military has a history of overturning the people's mandate. Reports say they're already looking to dissolve the Move Forward party.
I'm not worried, but I'm not careless. But with the consensus that came out of the election, it will be quite a hefty price to pay for someone who is thinking of abolishing the election results or forming a minority government is probably far-fetched from now. And I think the people of Thailand would not allow that to happen.
The Thai military was hammered in this election. It was an indictment of the misrule under Prayut Chan-o-cha. He was a general who took power after a coup in 2014, and since then he's been the prime minister. The people of Thailand have voted against him. His party has finished 5th with just 36 seats. Chan-o-cha was seen slipping away from his party headquarters late last night. He told reporters that he respected democracy and the election. Remains to be seen if he'll walk the talk and how the Thai military will respond to this humiliation. The big headline from Turkey: there will be a second round in the presidential election. None of the candidates breached the 50% mark. Recep Tayyip Erdogan got 49.42%. His rival Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu got 44.95%, and a third candidate impressed as well, Sinan Oğan, who got around 5% of the vote. So Erdogan was the most popular candidate, but that's not enough. You need more than 50% of the vote to become the president of Turkey, which means there will be a runoff. Think of it as a second round. It will be held on the 28th of May. There will only be 2 candidates in the fray, Erdogan and Kılıçdaroğlu. On Monday, both men were confident of winning the runoff. Erdogan more than his rival. Listen to this.
If our nation says a second round, we gladly accept it. We will absolutely win this election in the second round. Everyone will see that.
I would like to emphasize it once again that the fact that the election results have not yet been finalized does not change the fact that our nation's choice is clearly in our favor. We strongly believe that we will continue to serve our nation for the next 5 years.
I'll tell you why Erdogan is confident. Because he wasn't expecting to do so well. Late opinion polls predicted Kılıçdaroğlu in the lead. But the actual results tell a different story. It is Erdogan who is within striking distance of victory, which brings us to the runoff. Who has the edge going into round 2? Looks like Erdogan. He's leading his rival by 4.5%. Plus his party has captured the parliament. 2 things that will work in Erdogan's favor. But there is one person who could spoil his party, and that's Sinan Oğan, the third candidate who got 5% of the vote. He hasn't endorsed either candidate yet, but chances are he won't support the opposition. You see, Oğan is an ultra-nationalist. His biggest enemies, Syrian refugees and Kurds. But Kılıçdaroğlu counts on Kurdish support, so ideologically there's a problem. Unless some last-minute deal is struck, an alliance looks very unlikely. Having said that, this is politics, so anything is possible. The Turkish people have 2 weeks to introspect, to think hard about what they really want. And the choice is stark. Erdogan and Kılıçdaroğlu are like chalk and cheese. They disagree on most policy issues. Erdogan believes in centralized power. He wants to continue with the presidential system. Kılıçdaroğlu wants to abolish it. He wants to empower the parliament and the prime minister. Erdogan has traditionally villainized Turkey's Kurdish community. His rival has promised to defend them. He also plans to normalize ties with NATO, approve Sweden's entry into the alliance, and reconcile differences with Europe. Meanwhile, Erdogan thinks the West is trying to topple him. They're certainly capable of it, but there is no evidence so far to suggest this. There's a reason why global media is obsessed with this election. I know we keep saying all elections are consequential, but this one fits the bill, really, because it will realign the global order. In fact, let me tell you what a post-Erdogan Turkey could look like. For starters, no more Islamist rhetoric. Kılıçdaroğlu is a committed secularist. He ended his campaign by visiting Kemal Atatürk's mausoleum in Ankara. Guess how Erdogan ended the campaign? By visiting the Hagia Sophia Mosque. Really sums up the differences. Kılıçdaroğlu is likely to increase interest rates. Central banks across the world have done it, but not in Turkey. Erdogan opposed interest hikes, calling them un-Islamic. The result is this, more than 40% inflation. Kılıçdaroğlu has also promised to triple welfare spending. He wants to set aside 12% of the budget for social programs. Looking at Turkey's economy, they need it. Let's also look at foreign policy. NATO would love Kılıçdaroğlu to win. He may not completely break away from Russia, but he won't be a shaky partner, not like Erdogan was. He has also promised to restart talks to join the European Union. Erdogan started those talks, but he lost interest in the last decade. So the West will be hoping for an Erdogan loss. Having said that, it's not all rosy. Kılıçdaroğlu is a Turkish nationalist first. So he plans to normalize relations with Syria. He wants to send Syrian refugees back as soon as possible. Among all these differences, one stands out, and that's temperament. Erdogan had big ambitions in the Islamic world. Kılıçdaroğlu does not. He wants to end Turkish intervention in Libya and Syria. To sum up, here's what a post-Erdogan Turkey could look like. Less volatile, more predictable, more approachable. But looking at Sunday's results, that seems far off. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. We've been bringing you updates from the ongoing elections in Thailand and Turkey. We'll show you some more images of the current political mood in the two countries. Meanwhile, a Palestinian cyclist was injured after he was hit by an air raid last week. Myanmar and Bangladesh just witnessed Cyclone Mocha. What does a cyclone look like from space? We'll show you new images, satellite images of the cyclone over the Bay of Bengal. And the world celebrated Mother's Day over the weekend. Some of you must have celebrated with flowers and chocolates. But a mother-son duo in Germany celebrated with a motorcycle backflip. And finally, what makes the 15th of May significant? Taking you back in history, on this day, Britain tested its first hydrogen bomb. The year was 1957. The explosion was a part of a series of tests in the Pacific. This was a thermonuclear explosion. These bombs can be 100 times more powerful than atomic bombs. Their light can cause permanent blindness to people looking from miles away. This particular explosion ignited a major debate about the dangers of nuclear weapons. It led to the establishment of an organization called Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. We're leaving you with this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
This is a very important election for us, but I'm hopeful.
email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law? America supports India because it needs India's support in return. And India is working with the US because it suits India's interests. This is how geopolitics works. Last night, he diffused a crisis with his defense minister. But today, Netanyahu was confronted with a new problem. His cabinet seems to have rebelled against him. The UK is looking at the Indian subcontinent to fill its coffers. That India seems to be negotiating from a position of power, like a partner and not a former colony. The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1, the Kohinoor and the colonial loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting.